First, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Mimi Frusha. I'm a Build It Green board member and also the CEO of Higg. I'm really excited about this conversation, advancing new financial products and services for ADUs, with this fantastic panel of guests that we have here from a variety of organizations. So to get us started, I want to set a little bit of context about Build It Green and the work they're doing. Build It Green has been working with our community to identify new ways to catalyze the building culture towards regenerative design and development. And taking a systematic approach, we saw ADUs as the right unit of scale to explore the intersection of finance, policy, building materials, community, and workforce development and bioregional revitalization. To deeper understanding and untangle some of the barriers to the widespread adoption of ADUs, we're bringing together stakeholders and innovators across the field for our fall forums. 2 weeks ago, we hosted a discussion on catalyzing new markets for construction and building materials. We talked about the housing and environmental crisis through the lens of building systems, materials, and more efficient supply chains. To help California close a housing gap of 3.5 million more homes by 2025, increase construction productivity, and reduce construction cost are part of the solution. But the most common question, and one of my favorites, is how do we finance it affordably and equitably? Today, we'll explore alternative financial products and ownership models that have the potential to advance access to affordable housing using 3 very different approaches. We are thrilled to have this panel of guests with us today. Eve Picker is the founder and CEO of Small Change, and a real estate impact investing and crowdfunding platform for anyone over the age of 18 interested in building wealth and making a positive impact on their communities. Miriam G. is an architect and co-founder of Co-Everything and OB Cooperative, a worker-owned company that is leasing backyard space from homeowners to build, rent, and to manage affordable, sustainable backyard homes. Fathia Macauley is the Chief Lending Officer for the Housing Trust Silicon Valley, a regional community development financial institution, empowering homeowners to build ADUs with educational resources and a 3-year construction loan in the form of a second home mortgage. Thank you for all of you that are in our audience today. When we move to the Q&A session, please submit your questions there, and after our panel discussion, we will get into as many of those as possible. So let's get started. So traditional finance is commonly risk averse and not exactly known for innovation. At the same time, the intersection of COVID-19, pre-existing social disparities, and the housing crisis requires brand new thinking about how we finance affordable housing, what shape that affordable housing can take, and who gets to be part of the solution. Fathia, I'd love to ask you the first question about how the Housing Trust of Silicon Valley is thinking about this, and how does your pilot ADU financial product fit in?
Great. Well, thank you so much. So a little bit about Housing Trust. We're a CDFI, a community development financial institution. We have been, good grief, working on our ADU construction loan program for, I would say, close to 3 years. And I think that some of the gaps and hurdles, our program is meant to address some of the ways that homeowners have encountered barriers to traditional financing for ADUs, primarily as it relates to can you even count the projected revenue from the ADU into your loan request? Because for a traditional lender, that doesn't necessarily exist. And I do find that now I think there's some lenders that are getting a little bit warmer to it, maybe through a home equity line of credit. But I think that it really speaks to a lot of different, that's a HELOC is a tool for a lot of different things, but not necessarily for an ADU. So we spent a lot of time thinking about this. And one of our aims also is how to address affordable housing in single family neighborhoods where the density is built towards neighborhoods that are, especially here in Silicon Valley, we're in one of the highest, good grief, not only the income, but the real estate market is quite high here. So how do we address affordable housing given that we have so many single family home neighborhoods? So creating an ADU and balancing out the rental income from the tenant at an affordable rate with the actual payment seemed to be a way for us to create balance through a lending program. So we went through it backwards, and that seemed to be effective. I'm not sure how much time I have, but those are some of what are the limits of what we can do. Our loan is a second, and it's behind the first mortgage of the lender. It's first year rather, is 12 months for construction or for prefab. This is for detached ADUs only right now. It's a pilot. Maybe we'll graduate into looking at attached ADUs, but for right now it's detached. And the loan again is in second position, and our valuation is up to $200,000, and our valuation is up to 97% combined loan to value. So that's the combined loan to value of not only the existing mortgage, but or home rather, but the proposed cost to construct the ADU. So the prospective tenants that will be in the ADUs, we looked at a lot of things and what rubric would work well, and we're using HCD's rental income limits, and so we will go up to 120% AMI, but the rent that we've set is based on somebody that's around 80% AMI, and that rent would be about $2,200 for one bedroom. Market rate rents for one bedrooms in San Jose, I believe, are somewhere between $2,400 and maybe $2,800. So it's an affordable rent, and then the rental income the payment is based on it's a 20-year amortization, but it's due by year 3, and so that would lower the payment to a little under $1,400. It's about $1,300 for the payment. So it creates a lot of comfort level for us as lenders, and it goes about this in a way that achieves affordable housing and also allows the homeowner to have a loan that's dependent on their rental income and not their existing. It doesn't touch their existing mortgage.
Thank you, Fathia. Miriam, Co-Everything and OBI are thinking about the role of homeowners in a different way. Not as the person who's building the ADU, but the person who owns the land for the ADU. Could you tell us a bit more about what OBI is doing with land leases, affordable housing, and the actual product you're offering homeowners?
Sure thing. Thank you, Mimi. Hi, everyone. My name is Miriam G. I'm an architect with Co-Everything, and we're launching this pilot project, a new company called OBI Cooperative. And we will be leasing backyard space from homeowners in the Bay Area, particularly the East Bay. Our first pilot is going to be launching in Oakland. And cooperatively, our company will build, rent, and manage sustainable detached ADUs on these properties. So instead of our company incurring the cost of land, or say the homeowner incurring the cost of building an ADU, we will be renting the land from the homeowner with a backyard lease that is 99 years. It borrows from a community land trust model for permanent affordability for up to $500 a month to the homeowner. So we take care of finding the tenant, building a low carbon unit. The design is already decided upon, and we'll maintain the property into perpetuity. And we're hoping to find homeowners who want to fight the housing crisis, resist climate catastrophe, and make some extra money and support wealth building and neighbors who want to stay in their neighborhoods.
Thank you, Miriam. And I saw some photos of the OBI house, really quite amazing and lovely. So rethinking ownership is really important. Traditionally, wealth building in America has really been tied to home ownership. However, redlining, racial covenants, and exclusionary zoning have largely disadvantaged communities of color from participating in this American dream. Eve, Small Chain democratizes real estate investment through a platform for people who have been historically excluded from building wealth, but it's not necessarily tied to their own home. How does this work, and what is this doing for investors and their communities?
Okay, so Small Change is a securities platform. So we sell securities. We basically match up investors with developers who need equity for their projects, or sometimes debt. So in this instance, the demographic is really anyone over the age of 18 can invest. And we're a pretty unique real estate platform in that we use a rule called regulation crowdfunding, which is the SEC's first attempt to democratize investment. So on our platform, a real estate developer can post an offering and people can invest in their project. So yeah, this is an opportunity for an excluded group of people to invest directly in ways that they've never been able to invest before. With regards to ADUs, I mean, what we see is not necessarily homes that people want to build for themselves, but we see affordable housing projects that real estate developers are struggling to finance. And that can be everything from a small project to a very large one. And they're typically struggling to finance them because there are no financial tools out there, because financial institutions for the large part are pretty conservative in the way that they lend, and there's very few products to help them. So speaking to Miriam's model, for example, you know, I'm wondering if she is, you know, what lender she's going to be able to find that will provide debt for her model, because most lenders, maybe she's got a great lender, which would be fantastic. Most lenders would say, you know, this is really like a recreational vehicle. I can't collateralize the land, and therefore I don't want to lend to this project. And I have talked to ADU developers who've had a lot of trouble finding debt for projects like this. So we will help developers like that raise debt or raise equity to make projects happen that aren't quite yet in the mainstream. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And do you have a specific fund you're setting up that you could speak to?
We don't have a fund. We are a third-party platform. We're basically a place for developers or communities to come to raise money. We could certainly help to raise a fund, but we don't manage our own fund. But there are securities tools out there, like, for example, Regulation A, which permits you to raise up to $50 million, would be a fantastic tool for an ADU fund. It lets anyone over the age of 18 invest, whether they're an accredited investor or not. And you would obviously need a credit union or a CDFI fund or someone like that to manage the money and deploy it. So there's like raising the money, managing the money, deploying the money, making sure that, you know, that it's paid back. There's many steps to it.
I see a lot of synergies coming together just with this panel alone.
Yeah.
My partner has invested in one of Eve's projects that was, well, not one of Eve's projects, a Philadelphia-based project by Gillespie Labs that was hosted on Small Change.
Yeah, that was a tough project.
So continuing, sort of another question for Miriam. We talked a bit about the relationship between the homeowner and OB, but we didn't go too much into the cooperative model itself. For those that aren't as familiar with it, could you help us understand how this model is building and retaining wealth within communities in old and new ways?
Sure thing. So the model that we're talking about, OB actually to us means our backyard. It's not officially the acronym, but it's a bit of a play on words with like NIMBYs and YIMBYs and NIMBYs and all the B's. So we like to think of this as kind of a collective, our backyard, like the backyard neighborhood of the East Bay. And so the model here is, again, instead of folks maybe having a hard time finding a rental unit because developers are coming up against the high cost of land challenges that we have in the Bay Area, we'll defer those, defray those land costs by instead turning it into a land lease. So there's some cooperative elements between our worker-owned co-op and the homeowner. And then also there's a couple of different elements that we're playing with here too. We are partnering with the Arizmendi Association Construction Cooperative. And so if you all are familiar, it's my dad's like all-time favorite pizza. He will like worship me if I come home with Arizmendi pizza. But they also are an association of co-ops, and they have a construction cooperative. So they're actually going to be the general contractor on our build. And then also we're going to do a bit of testing for distributed manufacturing. So instead of, say, hiring a volumetric manufacturer who's going to prefabricate the entire ADU, walls, floors, roof, plumbing systems, and it gets craned into the backyard. What we're going to do with the Arizmendi Construction Co-op is hire out a kit build to several different carpenters. So local folks may be able to build, you know, some amount of wall panels, some amount of floor panels, or some amount of roof panels for this ADU. Probably it's going to be internal to Arizmendi on this first go around, like all of our carpenters will be building the panels, and then we'll be able to limit the amount of disturbance to the homeowner and bring these panels into the backyard all at once they're ready and erect in a much shorter time frame. So those are some of the opportunities around the construction model that are cooperative. And then the last piece, which I mentioned here in the chat because someone had asked about how much money we had raised for this first pilot. We are looking to take advantage of the California Cooperative Corporation model, which allows for California residents, and this came out in 2016, so it's pretty recent. In fact, we've spoken with a lot of lawyers around co-op law, and kind of there's a special exemption that allows California residents to invest up to $1,000 per co-op. So investing in the business. So this means that folks, not like with Eve's model, they're not investing in a specific real estate project. They would be investing in OB Cooperative, and we would build as many ADUs, the first and beyond the pilot, as possible. And you know, if they support our mission, they also have some amount of, they become a member owner, like some amount of ownership share in the company. So that's a totally different model. I don't think anyone has used it yet, but we're completely up for the idea because we know that a lot of people who are in the Bay Area are thinking to themselves, maybe they've been here for a long time. Like, I'm from Sacramento, my brother lives in Walnut Creek, my sister just left San Francisco because she got priced out. You know, folks are saying, like, what can I do? This housing crisis is out of control. And so we know many people, especially through the Arizmendi network, who have come to us and said, like, hey, put one in my backyard. I'd love to become a host homeowner, or I'd love to invest in the co-op because they want to do something that supports housing stability. And sometimes you feel like there's not a lot that you can do, but even that small amount of money will help the more people we have investing.
Thank you, Miriam. Fathia, you've been working with affordable housing for much of your career and know how important it is for families to have a stable place to live. ADUs can help cities reach their regional housing needs allocation goals as well. What kind of hybrid public-private individual homeowner partnership model is needed to spur development quickly?
Sorry, I was muted. I think I'll take a step back. I think earlier I was talking about housing trust, and I kind of wanted to give context for why we're doing this, and it is based on like the idea of public-private partnerships. So Housing Trust started in 2000. We're a 20-year-old CDFI. We have lent, I believe, about $335 million, and those are for multifamily as well as for homebuyer programs. So multifamily, a large number of our projects are financed by low-income housing tax credits. And so we come in at the very beginning, usually with an acquisition or pre-development loan. So it's kind of, I would say, the most risky part because we're lending against the plan, so to speak. So when we looked at ways to leverage our experience with public-private partnerships, we thought about this lending program as a way to be able to have leverage from other places. So for right now, we had some initial grant funding to work on the loan program. But primarily what we're hoping is that in the future, this would be buffered by other partners. And we're hoping that, and I don't know if I mentioned that we're in the 9-county Bay Area, so I believe that includes the East Bay. So a lot of our affordable housing developers that we work with are in the East Bay. The bulk of them are in the South Bay, which would be San Jose, Santa Clara, et cetera, but we do develop affordable housing projects in Berkeley and Oakland, Hayward, Richmond, Pittsburgh, et cetera. So why I'm mentioning that is because this idea of linking up other sources is very well known in low-income housing tax credits, where you have layers of financing. So we're hoping that others, and that's one of the things about, I would say, this ADU world, is that we are partners. A lot of people are talking together on this panel. I'm going to be talking to Miriam and Eve later because I want us to see, how we can partner together.
I have a project for you.
I'm sorry?
I have a project for you.
Excellent. So one of the things that's happened in, I would say, over the last couple of years is that cities have approached us and said, hey, we'd like to work with you. How can we do this? The governor's rules that changed in ADUs at the beginning of the year will certainly assist some of the changes that can be made on creating ADUs. But essentially, I would say that what we're also trying to see is how we can incentivize homeowners to work with a tenant that has a Section 8 voucher. We haven't done that yet, but that is an eventuality that we'd like to include. One of the other ways that we want to include affordable housing especially for this program, is that we do ask for an affordable housing covenant to be placed on the funds that we lend to the homeowner to ensure that this ADU will be affordable for the duration of our loan. It's a home, so we can't be too restrictive as to what they would do and after the tenant, after that year period. But I would assume that most tenants are going to be stable and they'll be able to remain in that unit for some time. And I think that's our whole point, is how do you create affordable housing stability for renters in a staunchly single family neighborhood. So we're still open to innovation. This isn't done yet. This is still a pilot. It's still, it's in the works. Our launch date is soon. I know that's not very specific, but I would say, sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks, believe it or not, we're actually excited about being able to move forward. So, ideas and thoughts, absolutely open. So.
Thank you, Fathia. So exciting. So creating and living in affordable housing is just the beginning. From there, a host of community co-benefits emerge. Eve, can you tell us about some of the changes you've seen in communities that small change works in? What might that tell us that would be possible if we adapt this model to ADUs?
I'm not sure I can really answer that. I'm seeing changes in real estate models, that's really what I'm focused on, not communities. And I don't know the communities that we raise money for that well. We're raising money all over the country, so that would be pretty tough for me. But I've certainly seen changes and innovations in the way developers are thinking about projects, and I've seen them innovating in a whole host of ways to try to make housing more affordable. But finance in the end is key. When real estate building is driven by a financial system that gives you a gold star when you keep doing the same thing, it's very difficult to innovate. So we have a system now where in order to get a loan, you really need to be building something that's been built before. That bank is going to send out an appraiser. They're going to get 3 like appraisals, and if they can't find them, you're not going to get a loan. So sort of the cards are stacked against innovation in real estate, I think, in a really major way. And I appreciate all these efforts, but I think that to solve a housing crisis that has, how many units are there needed in just the West Coast? Did you say over 3 million?
Yeah, 3.5.
How are we going to get there by building these one at a time, unless there's some radical change to the financial system that permits developers to build these things? I'm really kind of baffled by it. and disappointed. So I think I didn't really answer your question well, but I think the shift I'm seeing is, how can I say this? There is a fever pitch from people that I talk to in trying to figure out how to solve this problem in any number of ways. They all need help.
Yeah. Such a relevant point of that our current systems and structures don't necessarily reward innovation, whether it be in the ADU model or in other models. Just to go back to my question, and I can give it to you again, Eve, or also
Sure.
Fathia and Miriam, I'll open it up for you. I think in providing more affordable housing, we're able to really change our communities and help create more diverse communities. And so I'd be interested in hearing about benefits you're seeing from your approaches or your models related to ADUs.
So, affordable housing's always been, I'm in Pittsburgh, affordable housing has always been part of the redevelopment scene there. I mean, I think, yes, it's really important to provide clean, safe, good housing for absolutely everyone. And ADUs could be a very quick way to make that happen if we had the financing in place. You have people with big backyards that are in ideal places, in good neighborhoods, with good schools and good grocery shopping nearby, on transit lines, everything that someone who wants and needs affordable housing could use. So again, I think if we're really going to unlock that, it comes down to a major shift in thinking about financing. We have financing models in place in the country that support very inefficient affordable housing models that require a lot of subsidy, that encourage building multifamily buildings that have expensive fire systems and stairs and elevators, and all those things have to be subsidized. And we can't seem to get our brain around financing granny flats.
Such a true point. No, I think you raise a really excellent point when you start to think about how complex multifamily affordable housing financing is and the capital structure of it. And when you start to think about ADUs, there's some simplicity to that. And really the question is, how do you innovate and scale on that, I think is
and I think the other thing, speaking to your community question, is that ADUs permit us to integrate affordable housing into well-established communities and really get some diversity. In Pittsburgh, there's always been this struggle with neighborhoods that have a lot of affordable housing and neighborhoods that don't have any. And so I think ADUs are a key to really letting people live together. If we can just crack the financing code.
Thank you, Eve. Anything, Fathia or Miriam, you'd like to add, just going back to the community question, healthy communities? Please, Miriam.
Fathia, are you cool with me going next?
Please, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to say that I totally hear you, Eve. And the financing has been really tricky. It's kind of crazy to think about the amount of time that our co-op has put into just rolling out this first model, and us putting all of our own equity involved and then getting equity from the community. And we have a wonderful CDFI who's going to fund part of the debt of this build, and then thinking, okay, that's one. And then how do we get to the next, to the next, to the next? And we do have this plan with the Ayers Mini Construction Co-op to start with 1 and then 2 and 3 and then get up to 10 per year. And part of the kind of ripple effects that we see across the community here is we would love to have this distributed manufacturing process happening with like all kinds of carpenters who are in the local area, so that we don't have to be outsourcing to volumetric modular builders in Sacramento and reserving affordable to construct ADUs only for people who have like the right turning radius clearances to get those volumetric modulars, or like a giant crane going up over all the power lines and into your backyard. So that's a community benefit that we hope to see, is kind of like this distributed barn raising around these small units. You know, there's something charming about this idea of something that's just a small building that people can kind of like mentally get their head around, and it's less intimidating, and thinking about that as like a hopeful solution towards affordable housing, and not thinking about, you know, 400 units with no parking in West Oakland, you know, and tons of subsidy. And it's like that's so far beyond like being part of real estate development and like feeling hopeful. I did want to raise up East Bay Permanent Real Estate Co-op, because I think Ashton mentioned it in the chat, and they're an amazing partner in this work. And a lot of the policy has been changing, and like funding mechanisms have been changing to allow for these things to happen. And now we're kind of at the point now where it's like, okay, we need to just do it. And if we as OB can get over this hurdle and show folks that we can build ADUs in a way that's affordable and replicable, and not just reserved for already wealthy homeowners who want to build precious gems in their backyard for their in-laws to visit and take care of their children or what have you, like respect for that. And that's also like not the people that we're necessarily trying to build for here, who are having problems finding financing to help pay their mortgage. You know, there's a lot in that, like EB-PREC and Sustainable Economies Law Center. I feel like they've even been like making waves recently now, where something's being passed in California where if a piece of real estate goes up for foreclosure, and someone who is not intending to be a homeowner to buy the house and live in it, but either like an out of state or just that's not your primary residence landlord, then I believe that the legislation that they're trying to pass is that folks who are of a community land trust or a local cooperative, like maybe like OB or East Bay Permanent Real Estate Co-op, would be able to match that bid for the foreclosing house to try and keep homeowners and neighborhood folks in the neighborhood, as opposed to it kind of turning into a corporate money machine, if that makes any sense. So I think that even though it can be really difficult, that there's actually a lot of hope coming out of this moment. And some of that has been driven by policy, and some of that has been driven by like cooperative financial tools, or just, you know, all of these other amazing grassroots folks who are making these policy changes, and people like Eve who have the Small Change platform. Like, it's not beyond us. I think it's very possible that we'll be using Small Change to also do, you know, a Reg CF raise with them as well in the future. But so yeah, I think some of the effects are maybe jobs, maybe hope.
Miriam, thank you. Fathia, I want to give you a chance also to respond to also the community benefits that have come from these innovative approaches to housing.
Sure. I think that if there's, you know, again, the hope is that if you're having a renter and a homeowner on the same lot, that, you know, that it's not a cookie cutter replica of the homeowner, you know, and the idea is that the rental unit would be provided to someone who's economically diverse and hopefully racially and also, I don't know, in many ways diverse. You know, affordable housing as a tenant is just that it's a right, you know, for everyone to have safe, decent, and affordable, you know, and quality affordable housing. And what I love about ADUs is, I think Eve already said it, it was about putting ADUs in neighborhoods that have great shopping, great schools, availing the renter of some of the benefits of what the homeowner has. You know, probably like aged trees. I'm a big tree person. You know, I feel like, you know, and I think that unfortunately sometimes apartments, you know, the cities will have a requirement for you to put replacement trees on a lot when they demo it to build the affordable housing unit. But one of the things that they'll build are juvenile trees. And, you know, when you actually think about what makes you what builds a neighborhood and looks actually, I would say the age of the trees, the age of a lot of the fixtures that are in the community that create a platform for stability. And I know that that sounds kind of strange that when I'm talking about the trees, but I think even as when I was a little kid, you know, growing up in Los Angeles, I knew the areas where it didn't have a lot of trees didn't feel so great. The neighborhoods that had a lot of trees really felt great. And I feel like those in a lot of single family neighborhoods, the that community feel to be able to create an affordable unit for someone who may be seeking that, you know, and who still wants to be in community. I think there's in the social determinants of health, you know, they talk about not only where you live, but your zip code. A lot of these are determinants of your longevity. And I think that this will ADUs placing individuals that are maybe moving across town will be creating some stability and hopefully some longevity as well.
Such excellent points, particularly thinking about sort of the lives and spaces we're living in during the pandemic. I think think about how different someone's experience might be just being able to be in a different neighborhood. So thank you all for your comments. I do think a big part of our exercise here is not just about providing an affordable space, but providing a healthy space. So I'm gonna ask just one final question of each of you. And we're gonna keep these short because I wanna leave time for the rest of the audience to participate. So these questions are a little bit not necessarily specific to the topical areas that we were talking about, but more some of my own curiosities as I think about my experience with financing or helping communities build wealth. So for Miriam to start, as I said before, I really love the OB house, but with my experience with PACE and solar PPAs, which are a bit of these long-term financing for products that the next homeowner will inherit, I keep thinking about when the homeowners that do participate, that do believe in participating in the OB model, want to sell their homes, the impact that the OB house and lease could potentially have on the sale of the home. And I'm really curious about what you might say to a homeowner with reservations about that impact that OB could have on their sale or their home, and what that homeowner might even say to the next homeowner.
Sure, Mimi. And I think this may answer a question that was typed into the chat also. So whomever was asking about owning the house outright versus not, and is it tied to the deed? So in our model, the idea is that the homeowner themselves may want to reap the benefits of having additional rent coming in. You know, that's kind of maybe the benefit of the ADU in this model, is that you can have additional rent coming in to help you pay your mortgage. We aren't necessarily going for homeowners who already own their property outright. The idea is it's a mutual benefit. This extra $500 a month with the backyard that you never use, you know, can be used to help you pay your mortgage or whatever you want to use it for. And so that benefit actually passes with the title or the deed of the house. So the way that we have written the contract currently is that it's for a 99-year permanent affordable lease. So that $500 will go to the next homeowner into perpetuity. And so part of our model is right now we understand the costs of this build, and we understand that the more we build, the less expensive they get over time. And that part of the permanent affordability is that by locking in this $500 a month, also that cost which gets incurred in the development expense, you know, is locking in permanent affordability. So as home prices over the years begin to rise and rent prices also begin to rise, we hope to freeze the rent price of the ADU with this frozen $500 a month land lease agreement. So yes, it is tricky. And, you know, we do have a lot of options for outs in our contract. Oh my God, you would not believe how long we've worked on this contract. And I will not bore you with the details, but let's say that our first homeowner she is so amazing. She really supports this work and she can't wait to have it in her backyard. And there have been many cycles that we've gone through to kind of work through the different outs that you have. So although we're tying this to a 99-year lease, there are lots of securities within it where we're trying to help the homeowner not fail or miss mortgage payments to the bank. So,
thank you, Miriam. Eve, my next question is for you. I appreciate there's a lot of components that small change is addressing, both on a need for financing from a developer or the ability for an individual to invest. I'm really curious about some tensions that you might encounter when trying to achieve some of the small change goals. So in particular, I'm interested, I know a lot,
You
right?
want the whole list?
I have one question and 90 seconds. How are you reaching, in particular, the community of low to middle income investors when you're doing your crowdfunding? I'm very curious about that because when you think about that universe of investor, they have many other concerns that they might be balancing as well in their lives, particularly in the pandemic. And so how are you reaching them?
Okay, so you have to understand there's several layers to this. We are a compliant securities platform, so we can help developers sell investments into their projects, but we are not actually the developers ourselves. So we play a role to make sure that they do that within securities regulations, not just for regulation crowdfunding, but also for Regulation A and for 506C with accredited investors. So that's our role. So we, I think we do that because we have very purposefully created a voice for ourselves that is at the intersection of crowdfunding and urban issues. And if you follow us on social media, the content that we're creating, or the podcast that podcast interviews that I do every week, that's what interests us, and that's what we talk about, and that's what we talk about in context with the ability to raise money on our platform. Second, we've created something called the Change Index. A developer cannot raise money on our site unless they reach a certain bar. It's a proprietary index, a survey. We're not going to help a developer who's building a Dunkin' Donuts in the suburbs raise money for that project. It's not a good fit for us. So simply by being very clear about our mission, that we want to ensure that the projects that we help raise money for make a change, a transformative change in the communities they sit in. We believe that we reach people who are interested in those. And then that's what we market. And then finally, it's down to the developer. So a developer like Golaski Labs comes to us and says they want to raise money from the community they're in. We don't know that community. We have like a national group of people who follow us, but we don't know that particular neighborhood in Philly. Mm-hmm. And we're absolutely relying on them to reach their own community.
Thank you. So Fathia, the last question for you before we get to some closing thoughts. I'm really curious about sort of one, in thinking about this ADU loan product, how do you see it scaling in the long term, and what sort of partnerships might you need to enable it to scale?
Great question. You know, we are in the process of thinking, okay, what would this look like on an annual basis? How many can we do per month? It's again a pilot, so we're looking at probably a dozen for this first year. We could easily see us getting a rhythm going and doing more, but I think that's part of this kind of elongated startup phase has been to research what does it actually take for us internally to move this forward. Who do we have to partner with right now? What does it cost? You know, and I think and what does it? What's the cycle of ground up ADUs versus prefab? What's that going to look like? Are most homeowners going to choose a prefab unit, or are they going to want to work with the GC and, you know, and have a 12-month period, or they want to cycle through really quickly and do something in 6 months? We don't know. So we're trying to be able to handle all ends. And I think that really does affect our ability to cycle through large numbers of loans. But, I think it's set up to not just be like a one and done kind of thing. It's really set up for us to have a program that has longevity. What does that take? What most things take: capital, money. That's what we're going to need. I think that in order to be able to do the majority of them, and a lot of it would be, if we're able to cycle through them fairly quickly, then it will be able to sustain itself. It's not like these are not very large loans. So the origination fee, the application fee, these are not very large amounts. I think our application fee is $250. I don't remember what our origination fee is. Sonia or Bonnie, can you put it in the chat for me, please, what our origination fee is? My colleagues are on the call here. We have Sonia Singa, who's our mortgage loan originator for construction ADUs, and Bonnie Chung, who is our program associate for ADUs. So everybody's working really quickly so we can move this forward, and at the same time have something that has longevity. So the idea is to scale, but you got to test it first. So I think earlier today I was on I attended a panel. Sonia was one of the speakers, and I think the Boston, Miriam, what is the name of what you said it was called? Boston, the innovation.
City of Boston Housing Innovation Lab.
And so they're working, thank you, they're working on an ADU program, and the person had a diagram, and it was like, it looked like a Tootsie Roll, because it's like a lab. You've got the concept, you've got the experiment, and then you've got the outcome, and funnels on each end for inputs in the middle. So we're right in the middle right now of the experiment, and that we're hoping that the output will really glean something that will have staying power, as well as let's see, did somebody get a chance to put it? Thank you, Sonia. Origination fee is 1%.
Excellent.
So thanks, Bonnie, for both of them putting it in there.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to wrap up our conversation, and we are so close to the hour. So I'm going to ask you,
Wow.
I know, and we want to give the audience, I want to answer a few questions from the audience. So to close up our conversation, can you share some concrete steps for our audience to take? And I'm going to ask you for only one bullet. So this means it has to be one of the most important things that you think that are horizons and the topics that we need to watch for, mid-range opportunity areas, or 1 to 2 actions that the audience could take tomorrow. So thinking about what are next steps that any one of us could do, and only one, please.
I would just say for us as a lender, we are, the technical assistance part, we're not quite set up for that part. So the person really does need to come to us with the project already having obtained a permit. So, because we're on the lending part, maybe in the future we do a lot of education, not to say that we don't, but we can't design it for the person. We can't get you to the planning department. So that part has to be researched, but we can help you vet your vendors. But certainly to be able to, if they're project ready, talk to us today. But also go on the Symbiom website and find out if you can, and especially if you're in California, it'll show you if you can put the ADU on your property if you put in your address. So it's pretty cool software.
Thank you. Eve, what is one action item you would like folks to take?
Well, in about 3 or 4 weeks, come and check out smallchange.co, because you might be able to invest in an ADU.
Awesome. I love it.
An ADU or more than one.
Sounds terrific. And Miriam, what about you? What's one action that folks can take?
Oh, similar to Eve, you can go to Small Change, and you can go to obhouse.com. And just contact us if you are a homeowner and you've got a spacious backyard, and maybe you want us to, if you'd like to host an OB ADU, or in early next year, we should be launching our California resident cooperative rate.
Excellent. Thank you.
That was a really long bullet point.
No. Can I just say, Mimi, that our loan program is for Santa Clara County and East Palo Alto for right now, but hopefully we do hope to expand. So check out our website, housingtrustsv.org, to see where we are.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna jump in on a few questions from the audience, and I'll probably get to about 3 is what I can probably do. So let's see. So for ADUs, have the renovation loans from HUD and Fannie Mae been explored? This is for Fathia and Miriam. Do you think Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae can play a role in creating a financing product for this space?
I think one of the speakers today talked about home key, and oh goodness, I can't remember what the other program was that are being explored for ADUs or that could be explored for ADUs. I can't remember what the other one was, but I will look while my co-panelists are speaking so I can pull it up.
Great, thank you. Miriam, did you have further comments on that one?
Yeah, I can say I do believe that these products are being used. I know in Boston they are. Youth Build Boston here is design, build, and developer, and they've been working with lots of homeowners who get these types of loans. And the difference is in Boston, our pilot program for ADUs is more like the JADU of California. It must be internal to the existing building envelopes. So this often looks like an empty nester who's renovating their ground floor of their triple decker to become an accessible unit for themselves while their children boomerang back home and move in with kids on the upper floors. But it's definitely been working really well for low and moderate income homeowners to use that exact product. But for OB, we're not using it. We're building ground up detached ADUs.
Thank you. So there's another question, and this is a curious one to me, is what's the per unit cost for ADUs approximately that we're seeing? And I'd say probably clearly it's going to vary by geography or region, but maybe if we could just put a point on what you're seeing for California.
I don't know about Miriam, but I see a range.
Big range.
I think that it's huge. I've had people who I was on a panel maybe in October of last year, and someone was lamenting because I think they had spent up to $700,000 on their ADU. Obviously, that's
terrible.
I don't think they were working with people that I don't think it was a good experience. So I think there was more of a cautionary tale. But we have that question. Right now our loan program is up to $200,000. But that's what we can do. That's what we've found as a comfort level for a loan for us. And we're hoping that we'll get the homeowner to some level of production. But we are seeing ranges that are, I would say we've seen things, I've been quoted $350 for some. Some of the prefabs are coming in around $200,000, just a little bit below that. So I don't want to go over belabor the issue, but I'm telling you, it's construction costs are varied right now. We're in a very interesting time with I don't know if our units would be affordable, and so I think it is a question as to whether or not the construction costs anyone would get a break, so to speak. I think it's going to cost what it costs for people. So
yeah.
I'm working with someone who has come up with a and I can't say who. I'm not allowed to. SEC rules. Who's come up with a unit that's probably around 130,000.
Interesting. And I think it becomes sort of yet another piece of the affordability to build, because ultimately you need to be able to pay for that.
He started really completely focused on that side of it and how to create an affordable build before he tackled anything else, which was probably smart, in partnership with a couple of contractors who produced these for him. So
yeah,
700,000 is
quite a range. Miriam, maybe the last comment, and then I'll wrap it up.
Oh, sure. I did want to say that the range I've heard in Oakland, there's a great city document. If somebody wants to email me, I'll send it out to them. There's a PDF. Can be anywhere from like $75 to $400 or $450 per square foot. And it really depends How small is this ADU? Is it detached? Are you renovating a garage? Are you going on top of something? Do you need a new electrical panel? Do you have to have your own utility lines? Like, there are so many things. So when we think of ADU, $130,000 ADU could be a great price. Perhaps the $700,000 ADU was like 4 bedrooms. I don't know. You know.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Fathia, Miriam, and Eve, for joining us today. I really appreciated the conversation, and thank you, the audience, for joining us and all of your questions. Before I close, I'd just like to mention 2 upcoming events we'd like to invite you to. If you have time, you can join us tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. for the first installment of our Regenerative Insights 100 series with Joel Glasenberg and Bill Reed from the Regenesis Group. They'll be helping us identify what is regenerative development, what makes it different from sustainable, and how does it relate to your practice. And then to continue the conversation about ADUs through a regenerative lens, register for the next fall forum on October 21st. We'll explore environmentally responsive building approaches and supply chains that revitalize the places they are part of. You can register at builditgreen.org, and we hope to see you there. Thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.